Hello and welcome to ENCORE. Here's what we've got coming up in today's cinema show. A tiny yellow army coming to a screen near you. The Minions is the summer family release from the team behind Despicable Me. A life cut short and lived through a lens. Paparazzi favourite Amy Winehouse is the subject of Asif Kapadia's latest documentary. And Toy Story returns with a couple of specially themed episodes. We see Woody and the gang get caught up in the plot of a horror movie and take on some dastardly dinosaurs. For all that, I'm joined by our film critic, Lisa Nesselson, so let's get started. Hi, Lisa.
Hello, Olivia.
Now, we're starting with the Minions, these tiny little yellow creatures. We first saw them in Despicable Me. They've now got their own film. It looks like a very family-oriented affair, and there's been a lot of marketing and merchandising involved. Is there more to the film than that?
Why? Is there merchandising? And who would fall for something like that? No, please don't be put off by everything from cell phone covers to plastic bowling pins with the effigies of the Minions. This is a brilliant, wonderful, just about perfect movie. Some people may contend that I look like this anyway, but I swear for 2 hours after I saw it, I just walked around with an idiotic grin on my face thinking, I saw a good movie. The Minions, of course, were the loyal but bumbling henchmen who helped the villain Gru in the Despicable Me movie and its sequel. And the answer to the question, can they carry a feature on their own, is a resounding yes. They propel endless loony antics with contagious silliness. The animation is fabulous, and rarely have zeros and ones been rendered into such adorable mayhem. So after the brilliant prelude in which we learn that the Minions go back to the very beginnings of time, and they have always sought out an evil leader to serve. The bulk of the film then takes place in 1968, first in New York, then in swinging London, and the Minions are on the lookout for a new evil master to serve. So they end up at VillainCon, which is a trade show for aspiring and established bad guys, and in this case, bad gals. Scarlet Overkill, who is voiced by Sandra Bullock in English and by Marion Cotillard in French. She's a villainess who needs henchmen to steal the crown jewels. Now,
we all do.
We've tried to steal the crown jewels in other movies, but never with these oval, bright yellow critters who wear goggles and talk in splendid, splendid gibberish. Here's a taste.
The biggest gathering of criminals anywhere.
Any evil talents?
Not bad.
What about you? Any evil talents?
Hello, la 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 la. Eh?
That's not evil or a talent.
Ah.
Ladies and gentlemen, the supervillain we've all been waiting for, Scarlet Overkill!
Doesn't it feel so good to be bad?
Work for me, and all your dreams come true.
Respect. Power.
Banana.
Banana.
OK, well, I can see they are certainly quite endearing. Did everybody find the Minions as irresistible as you did?
Well, it's very odd. I keep running into French colleagues who tell me they were disappointed or that the movie lacks a script. There's a technical term for that. They're nuts. They're crazy. They're off their gourds. The jokes build. They have a punchline and then a punchline on top of the punchline, and sometimes one grafted onto that. The style of animation is incredibly pleasing, and hundreds of French animators worked on the film. Pierre Coffin, who had the largest hand in bringing them to life and who does all of their funny little voices, he's French, and the soundtrack is terrific, unless you happen to hate the Kinks, the Who, the Doors, and Jimi Hendrix.
Doesn't sound too bad. Well, we're staying with music next with a documentary made by Asif Kapadia. It's a documentary about the singer Amy Winehouse. It's called Amy, who sadly died at just 27 years old 4 years ago. Now, some critics are calling this controversial or perhaps even voyeuristic. What did you make of the film?
Well, there's no controversy whatsoever as to Amy Winehouse's talent, and I know that Amy's father has objected to the film, but it's hard to see why, because it's a brilliant assemblage of information that really speaks for itself. It's by, as you said, Asif Kapadia, who made that riveting documentary about the Formula One race car driver Ayrton Senna. I have to say, I had minimal interest in Formula One racing, but he made this movie, and it's one of the best documentaries I've seen in years. The director is just 10 years older than Amy was. He was born in 1973, she was born in 1983, and as everybody knows, she died at 27. 27, and I think that musicians should consider just not having a 27th birthday and sort of skipping that year the way they pretend in tall buildings that there's no 13th floor, because that's bad luck. So the filmmakers use archival footage to tell the story, and we see Amy as a little girl in home movies. We see her fooling around with her friends as an adolescent. We hear her break into song when she's 14 or 15, and that voice is there. Those fully formed pipes are there. But it's as if there's a trade-off, which is, you know, these demons that follow her. So it shows us her massive talent, her short life, and she had this uncaring, self-involved father with a strong mercenary streak, which, lo and behold, is also a theme in Love and Mercy, the Brian Wilson film. So one is left with the impression that it was a very big deal indeed when her father left the family. Her father didn't think so. That's just a piece of the iceberg. Let's take a look.
The more people see of me, the more they'll realise that all I'm good for is making music.
And the Grammy goes to Amy Winehouse. She was one of the truest artists I ever heard.
Amy was a girl that just wanted to be loved.
I fell in love with someone who I would have died for. And that's like a real drug, isn't it?
And it's kind of ironic, isn't it, that constant paparazzi presence, the increasingly invasive documentation of her every move, that's what actually provides the raw material for this film.
It is deeply ironic. Some people think that we as viewers are complicit in this sort of destructive voyeurism, but I disagree with that. I think we're just watching a case build itself for how Amy was born to sing, but she didn't have the emotional tools to cope with fame when fame just clobbered her. And actually in The New Yorker, critic Anthony Lane wrote that Winehouse was born in 1983 into the first generation for whom privacy was more of a joke than a right, let alone a haven.
Yeah, I think that was sadly true. Now, indeed, the director was very lucky to have access to home video, and he talked to us at France 24 about how he was able to get his hands on that footage.
One reason this footage existed is it sort of predates iPhones. It's before camera phones, so it's actually a physical tape. So it was like a mini DV tape or a DVD recorder or a VHS tape. And so you keep them, you just put them on a shelf and you forget them. Were it the iPhone generation, at some point you're standing somewhere going, oh, I have to delete something. They probably would have deleted a video and recorded something else over the top. But actually, because it was just slightly earlier, people do keep things because they never remember to rewatch them. And then as Amy got ill, as things got worse, they didn't want to look at them again. It was too painful to look at them. So it wasn't until we'd done our interviews and they'd kind of gone through the process of trusting me and started to open up about her that they felt confident enough to let me see the tapes.
And the filmmakers interviewed dozens of people, and he had the very smart idea of really looking at the lyrics. So we see the sheets of paper on which she scribbled in her own hand the lyrics, and in retrospect, it's all there. The contours of her life were being sung about in plain sight in more or less real time. You know, every July 3rd, which is the anniversary of Jim Morrison's death, I go to his grave at Père Lachaise Cemetery, and there are still people from all over the world speculating about, you know, how he died. Here, it's clear that she was a phenomenally gifted vocalist who got hijacked by the demands of modern celebrity.
Yeah, very tragic tale there. Now, next up, we've got a re-release from 1970. That's the film Wonder. This is quite a fascinating gem from the archive because Barbara Loden, she wrote, directed and starred in this film. Quite rare for a woman to do that in 1970. Now, how does Wonder's story look in 2015?
It's still rare for a woman to do that now. This is what the French call an ovni, a flying saucer, an alien craft, because it is so fully formed and it's absolutely dazzling at this remove. Barbara Loden died young at age 48 in 1980. She was director Elia Kazan's wife, and she seems to play a character who has no center. She plays Wanda, and she's astonishingly passive. If people didn't say this 45 years ago, but almost everything she says and does could be translated as whatever. So she lives in this coal mining town in Pennsylvania. She's not interested in her husband or her children, so she leaves, and she can barely rouse herself to go to the court date to lose custody of her own children. And when she meets a man who she just sort of falls in with, and he's a petty crook. The great French writer Marguerite Duras, when she saw this, said, "There's something miraculous genius at the heart of Wanda. As a general rule, there's a distance between the character and the actor, and here there isn't, but judge for yourself.
What about the kids?
Kids.
Yeah. I saw that picture in your wallet.
Well, they're with him. Better off with him. I'm just no good. Just no good.
Finally, we're finishing up with the return of some well-loved characters. That's from the Disney Pixar family. The gang from Toy Story are back with 2 television specials. Now, these are special editions in addition to the 3 films, another one in the making. Obviously, there's a lot of mileage in these characters. Why should we be rushing to see these new DVDs?
Because, as you say, these characters are heartening and entertaining, and the people who have made these 2 20-minute little mini movies are brilliant, absolutely brilliant. There is no talking down to the audience. It's fun for kids. It's brilliant for adults, and the dialogue is superb, and I still can't get over the fact that these toys know they're toys. They talk among themselves, but when a grown-up or a child comes into the room, then they all freeze and go back to being toys. And so one of them is a takeoff on the horror movie genre, and this one is about going to visit another kid's house where there are dinosaurs who have no idea that they're toys, and they take their lives super seriously.
Okay, so one for the kids and the grown-ups among us. Well, we'll leave you with a clip from one of those specials, the Toy Story that time forgot. Thank you, Lisa, for being with us, and thank you at home for watching. Remember, you can get more culture news on our website. We're also on Facebook and Twitter. There's more news coming up on France 24 after this.
Go talk to him, Sheriff. Well, hi there, sir. My name is Woody, and nobody cares.
What fearsome dinosaurs are these?
Who?
Greetings. I am Reptilus Maximus.
And I am, my name's Trixie. It's Trixie.
You're not like our females.
Oh, you're quite a unique specimen yourself.
Down to Earth.
We're down to earth in far northwest Kenya on a land that has welcomed 180,000 people in the last 2 decades. Most have fled violence in their war-torn countries, but a smaller proportion are here because their homeland has changed. The climate no longer supports their livelihood, and so they cross the border and end up here in a refugee camp. We call them environmental migrants.
Down to Earth on France 24 and France24.com.